Hey, Dr. Keith, it's Love Your Bones time.
It is Love Your Bones. We're ready to talk about this on this chilly Friday.
It is so cold here in whatever in Maryland, and I know it's colder in Boston, but it's also 2025, our first show of the new year.
And I wish I knew
And,
somebody who
and
could cook real good.
well, I told you to come over. I've been cooking all week. Val got stranded at my house.
Oh, she
Val
did.
Val came on Sunday, and
I'm
we were
talking
supposed to,
about healthy cooking.
I was cooking healthy. I was cooking healthy. I made all the things for her because she was stuck at my house and we couldn't go anywhere. So,
Yeah.
but but we brought a cook today, a real
I
cook.
know. That's why that would drop that hint. I said I wish I had somebody who can cook. Wink, wink. It's Friday. See, he said when you do. Oh, I shouldn't say that. This is Sunday. I'm sorry.
This Sunday. Aubrey, introduce yourself.
Yes.
We're so glad you're here. Our friend Aubrey
Yeah.
from our awesome partner, Unite for Her. Unite for Her and Touch are married. They're sort of our partner in crime on delivering our navigation services with their integrative care services. But I snatched Aubrey up to come talk because she is phenomenal. So
Well,
who are
thank you.
who
Yeah,
are you? Who
happy
are
to chat. And I feel like, especially heading into 2025, I feel like nutrition and cooking is on a lot of people's minds a lot of the time. But my name's Aubrey Red. I am a senior culinary dietitian at Unite for Her. So I work a lot with our members on learning how to eat a little bit better for things like bone health, but also just general healthy well-being, right? Which I think a lot of us are thinking of this time of the year.
Yeah. And hopefully that you'll give us tips so we can not just do it in January, but we
right,
take out the year. See,
right,
that's
right, right,
that's what
right.
we need help with too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Aubrey, give a little 2 minute 2 second blurb on Unite for Her.
Yeah,
For people who
sure.
don't know who you guys are.
Absolutely. So, Unite for Her is a national nonprofit supporting those diagnosed with breast and ovarian cancer. So, we provide a host of different wellness services from things like meditation and yoga to a really robust nutrition program like gift cards for the grocery store, as well as just tons of education as well. We have so many education events every year to help be a thought leader in that space of really oncology information. And so, providing over 7,000 members this year with these wellness services. And as a dietitian on the team, I get to touch base with people each and every day.
Mm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And to Keith's point too, my spin class, I go to my spin class every couple of days and everybody sort of who goes to the class has their own bike. Like it's
Yeah.
not really my bike, but it's my bike.
Yeah.
So this week these women came and took my bike.
Oh,
And
no.
I call them the January people because they only last till January. They'll be gone in 2 weeks. They'll be gone. They won't come back. But whatever. So I try to accommodate the January. So we're trying to not make January people here. We want to give them cooking tools that they'll stick with because it tastes good. And
Mhm.
I find that whenever I've done any kind of nutrition class or anytime try to like, okay, I'm gonna eat healthy, but what stops people from keeping doing it? The taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to taste like your grandma's mac and cheese. You
And
want to
see,
taste
see,
like
she
like
goes,
the peach
she goes
cobbler.
so far to the left. She had to pull in mac and cheese. Can we just like fruits and apples,
Okay, well, whatever. But I'm just trying to say that
Yeah.
what Aubrey brings to the table is her food tastes really good. It's healthy and it tastes really good. So people are going to stick with it,
Absolutely. I think
right?
that's half the battle. I
Right.
think it's you have these foods that you're used to and accustomed to. And I think sometimes we think that we have to just completely eliminate all of the foods we love, right? We were all just talking about peach cobbler before this, right? Peach cobbler, a delicious dessert, also a way to get some fruit into your day, right? Maybe a little extra with the fruit comes along with it. But I think when we think about nutrition and what we try to speak on so often is really finding balance with nutrition. So you don't have to eliminate all of the foods you love. You can just enjoy them in a balance, right? With some other really nutrient dense foods that you know are going to help give your body the nutrients it needs. And then maybe some of these more like fun, exciting, cultural, like, family foods, these are more of the like soul nurturing foods, right? We've got a little bit of a balance of the both there.
Okay. Hmm.
That's great. You said a really
So then,
interesting word. What did you say? Nutrient dense. Is that what you said? What did you
Yeah.
call nutrient dense food? Help me with that. Is that
I
broccoli?
feel like a lot of times I try my best not to use the words healthy and unhealthy or like good or bad food. I think that those are like two things in common vernacular that we say often. But food at the end of the day, right? Whether it is, fruits and veggies and really hearty meals, or it's, a delicious dessert or something of that nature, it's energy. So it's going to give our body energy no matter what. And so when I say nutrient dense, I mean foods that are going to be a little bit richer in things like vitamins, minerals, fiber, antioxidants, which a lot of times is really a lot more of our like plant forward foods. So fruits and veggies, beans and lentils, nuts, seeds, whole grains. And then sometimes I'll use the term more like energy dense or calorie dense. And that's typically when I mean something that's more like a fun food, right? Like mac and cheese or like peach cobbler, something that is maybe going to come with a little bit bigger of a load. It's still giving us energy, right? It's just maybe not giving us like vitamin A, like the apple that we had earlier was giving us. So that's a great question on the nutrient density.
Okay, cool.
hmm.
All right,
So
so
question is, I have a question about,
Yep.
so we talked about this nutrient dense,
Mm-hmm.
and there's calorie dense. Could you just give me some basic foods that are what you would consider being nutrient dense, that are
Yeah.
that are green?
That are green specifically.
They're-
I mean, most of our veggies, right? Like especially like a dark leafy green, you're saying a nutrient dense green food, or are you saying a calorie dense green food?
I'm looking for nutrient dense because, say,
Yes.
for example, when people that have cancer or people, um, the issue is you can eat a lot of calorie dense food that is also nutrient dense, but what about the people who are just trying to decrease the amount of calories, but make sure they are adequately taking enough food? So,
Yeah.
what are some kind of examples that?
Yeah.
And I think you can rattle off a couple of them. It doesn't have to be green; it just be veggies.
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't have to be green. I think there are lots of different colors of like nutrient dense foods, but I think where my brain immediately typically goes is a lot of those plant foods. So thinking more like a whole food. So a whole fruit or vegetable, whether it is fresh, frozen, canned, however you're choosing to consume it, because we know groceries are expensive. Our whole grains like quinoa and farro and buckwheat and brown rice and popcorn, I always love to highlight as a whole grain oatmeal, things like our nuts and our seeds. So I always tell people, I feel like I get a question all the time is like, which nut and seed is the best? And my answer typically is whichever one you'll actually eat, because it's more important to me that you're having some nuts and seeds than you eating like almonds over cashews, for example, so that you can get those health benefits. And then outside of that, things like our beans and our lentils, but also even to stretch beyond the scope of just our plant foods, we're going to have a lot of nutrient dense animal foods as well. So things like our low and non-fat dairy products, eggs, which are a really great source of natural vitamin D, which doesn't come in a lot of food products and is important for bone mineral density. Also, things like our lean proteins. So things like chicken, turkey, fish, like salmon, and then our white fish like tilapia and haddock and cod. All are really nutrient dense foods, but nutrient dense in a wide variety of ways. They kind of have all different profiles.
Is
And you
there a
said,
bad veggie? Is there a bad veggie? Like, are all veggies good? Like broccoli, spinach? Is there anything like just eat all the green things?
Yeah, I typically would say no. There is no bad veggie outside of if you're allergic to a particular veggie. or it's spoiled, right, in your fridge. I know that I have certainly had that occur. So no, I wouldn't say there's any bad veggies. If anything, I would highlight the importance of getting a variety, right? So it's great to eat all green vegetables. However, you might be missing out on some nutrients that you could get from like red and orange and purple, and white vegetables versus just having green.
Hmm.
You should go with colors.
So
Like
Yeah.
I could live on broccoli and spinach and string beans.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're
And
getting lots of like fiber, lots of vitamin K, but you're maybe missing some like beta carotene, vitamin A that you would get from like carrots or red bell peppers, for example. That's not as rich in those green colors.
so to kind of go back just a little bit, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to ask. So we talked about, I got a good understanding of nutrient dense
Mhm.
versus calorie dense.
Mhm.
And I like that you brought up eggs as now the whole egg or just the white of the egg as a good source of vitamin D.
I never heard that
Actu-
before. Eggs for vitamin D.
Yeah, it's actually the yolk of the egg that is the primary source of the vitamin D. So the egg whites don't have a ton. And if you've ever heard before, and maybe you guys have discussed this historically, but vitamin D, typically for most people, we don't really get a lot of it through food. It's typically synthesized when the sun hits our skin. So that's why a lot of people in more northern areas and climates where it's cold for a good portion of the year have to take vitamin D supplements because we're not going out in the sun as often. We're not getting as much exposure. Now, egg yolks are one really key source, and also fish are another really good key source. But not a lot of people are eating the fish that are rich in vitamin D because it's things like anchovies and sardines. Not I see Ricky making a face, right? Not a lot of people are eating those every single day to get that extra vitamin D.
So I'm going
Mm.
back. So let's go back.
Yeah.
You rename. So we got the egg, and we talked
Yep.
milk of the egg, and then you also named some key fish and fish, chicken, and turkey. Or is it just white meat, or just what would you say are some good areas? Yeah, you mentioned fish and chicken,
Yeah.
and but if we really wanted to get a large concentration of calcium of vitamin D, it would have to be sardines. What about salmon?
So salmon will have some. Yeah. So typically I would say 9 times out of 10, especially if you're not in a northern climate, you're probably going to get ample vitamin D just from like going out to your car, right? And like getting back in the car, going outside to let the dog out, etc. However, I think where we can put an emphasis on is trying to get in some of these fish like salmon, like our, canned fish like sardines and anchovies. When we get in those, we're also getting a high abundance of a nutrient called omega-3 fatty acids, which is really important for things like joint function and lubrication. So, if we're having issues with like inflammation or arthritic pain, or even just people who exercise regularly and find that they have like joint aches and pains, it can be helpful. It's been shown to promote heart health. So, making sure our cholesterol levels are within good balance, but also things like cognition, which I think is something we're all probably, I know I'm always thinking about how my brain is functioning. So it can really support a lot of different aspects of wellness.
So I have to eat sardines and anchovies to make my brain function. I'm not going to make it.
Not just sardines and anchovies. Luckily, omega-3s are in also most of our other fish, but also a lot of our like seeds. So having like chia seeds or flax seeds or hemp seeds, you're going to get some omega-3s there as well. So don't worry, you don't have to only eat sardines to get those.
I don't eat seeds either.
And it could be a potential place that you consider if you're thinking you don't eat a ton of omega-3s. It could be something where you're taking like a fish oil supplement, for example. I always try to take a foods first approach. However, I think in some cases, like vitamin D, for example, where it's just like really hard to get it in certain areas, sometimes I think a supplement can play a beneficial role in that sense.
I would definitely rather take a pill than eat a sardine.
Because I mean,
Or anchovy.
that's a perfect segue into just that whole point of the importance of vitamin D supplementation when women are
Right.
over 50. Well, there's fit when you're, well, as you start to pass 30, then there you need to take a closer look at the foods that you're eating. And then what is it, 1200, or really, what do we say, Ricky, for women? About 1,000 milligrams of
Yeah,
calcium.
that's what you said, to take
Yeah.
1,000. That's what I take from your,
And depending
from
on
what
your
you
body
told me
weight,
to take.
it's like 28 international units of vitamin D per pound body weight.
Mhm.
So, and then the other thing too is that people who are brown complected, dark complected, compared to those who are fair complected, are able to process more, are able to absorb more sunlight and to generate more vitamin D for their body. So, especially black folks,
Well, and I only take the supplement when I can't paddleboard. Like it's too cold right now. My little creek that I paddleboard on is frozen, solid ice.
Goodness.
So I'll take my supplement, but
pulls out, dog will be sitting there just on the paddle on the boat, looking out at the water. Stroke, stroke, stroke. Don't dip me over. But that it was
he went paddleboarding with me on the phone one day, FaceTime.
Oh my gosh.
she wanted to show me this beautiful sunset,
Yeah.
and it was like, wow. And
It was great, right? It was great.
when the dog was on the beach, I'm like, if the water's too cold, if you tip over, that's just
Yeah.
too cold. Anything
A
in
little too
40s,
cold.
40s and
It's too
50s
cold
is
right
too
now,
cold.
but I'll be back out there soon, man. Rewatching the
Yeah.
watermelon.
So I had
Yeah.
another question,
Yeah.
and that question was about organic. Now, what's this organic foods? Or because I have organic foods, then I got a question about farm. What is it? Field, or when you have your chickens and their
Yeah, it's free range chicken.
range chickens and grain-fed chickens, or
Yeah.
yard bird.
Yeah.
Some folks in the
Grass-fed
South, they
beef,
know
like what
yard
is all
bird,
that?
but how do you feed them, and why is that so important?
That's a good question. Yeah. So, especially, I think there's so many terms, right? I think particularly like meat, dairy, eggs nowadays, right? I see it with eggs all the time, right? I
Egg
see
packages are crazy.
free range, pasture raised, like cage free. And I'm like, I am just looking for some eggs, right?
Right.
But when we think about something like an egg, that's
Yeah.
a great example where some of those terms can mean a little bit of a bolster in some of our nutrients. So if you think about pasture raised, right? So pasture raised chickens, they're getting to like roam around wherever and eat a wide variety of different things in their diet. That can translate to, not to say a significant, huge difference. However, that can translate to a little bit of a bolstering in the nutrients in the egg and the egg itself. If you're thinking about, they're having a wide variety of our diet. Now, versus some of our other terms, cage free, free range, I feel like a little bit tricky terms, because with cage free, a lot of times it means there maybe are no individual cages, but there's like a lot of chickens, let's say, in one area. And then free range, maybe they have a small area, but not a ton. So typically with eggs, I say pasture raised is a great term to look for and go by. Otherwise, thinking about our products that we're getting, I would say with something like chicken, there's a ton of stipulations, at least here in the United States, around processing with chicken. So chicken is a relatively safe product to buy, whether it's like traditionally, conventional, or organic. When we're thinking about other proteins like beef or things of that nature, sometimes I'll make a recommendation for an elevation of like a grass-fed beef, because same concept as the pasture-raised chickens, they're able to go and kind of eat more of a variety in their diet. And so they're going to have a little bit leaner beef, but also a little bit more nutrients there.
Right.
When it comes to a produce perspective, I don't know that I would say that everybody needs to go and purchase exclusively organic produce. I think a lot of times that's that like gut impulse, right? Of like these organic produce are going to be a little bit healthier. But really, when we look at them, an organic apple versus a conventional apple are going to have pretty comparable vitamins and minerals. I think the important thing with produce is that you're giving everything a very good clean, because whether it's organic or conventional, organic produce is still going to use organic pesticides on the exterior. And so, also, if you think about at the store, I know I always go to the store and I'm like picking up an apple and I'm like, oh, I don't want that apple. And I put it back. People are touching all of the produce that you might end up with. So, giving it a really good wash and a scrub, whether it's like something firm you're scrubbing, or if you're soaking like leafy greens or berries in a mixture of water and a little bit of vinegar or baking soda, it can really give it a good clean on the
Oh,
exterior.
wait, so Ricky, you
What?
just said, I mean, water and vinegar. Because I don't, first thing, I buy organic blueberries. So now I'm gonna stop buying organic
I
blueberries.
know, so you just told me I don't need to pay more for organic
I'm
food,
talking
Well,
about,
I would
right?
say
give me some
sometimes
vinegar and water. What did you say? Vinegar and what else? And
Baking
a little
soda?
bit
baking
of
soda?
water with a little bit of vinegar. So, like, let's say you fill up your sink or you fill up a big bowl, you can put a tablespoon or two of baking soda or vinegar in it, and that helps to really break up the dirt and any bacteria on the exterior for something soft, right? That you wouldn't scrub, like a leafy green. I will say with berries, for example, I hear from a lot of people that they prefer the flavor of an organic berry. Like maybe it tastes a little bit better, like it's a little bit sweeter, a little bit more tart, or this or that. So I think from that realm, it's more of a preference standpoint, right? As far as
But it
like
could cost a lot
flavor,
more money. And
it
frankly, on the
does.
cleaning thing, sometimes I eat half the bag of grapes before I get home from the grocery store that haven't been in.
Oh, see what I'm talking about? Ooh, so now what we did, let's go back a little bit, just to repeat.
I failed.
So I, as long as, first thing, everyone who's on right now, we have to wash our vegetables and our fruit very well, and we need to wash it with
Pesticides.
water. Because I thought I was doing a good job. I wouldn't touch them. I'd go home, dump it into a strainer, um, and I have a rule of thumb. It's like wash it 3 times. So every time you wash it, there's 10% residual. So the first wash, you're down to 10%, second wash, you're down to 1%, and then at third wash, you're down to 0.1%. So that's kind of the way my mind thinks. But this whole concept of really doing a good clean, because we're worried about, we have people who are developing cancers based upon the foods that they take. And a lot of folks were just not, maybe also may not be washing our foods well. So
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, right? Until I started getting more into this space and, people asking me this question all the time, I was like you, Ricky, right? Like I would buy the bag of grapes and I'd eat half of it on the way home.
Right. They're gone
Now,
by the
I
time you get
mean,
home.
and I think, of course, it's negligible, right? If it's the bag of grapes, but everything else you're washing when you get home, I think it's okay to snack on some of the grapes on your way
okay.
home. I never want anybody to feel fear, right, around food, and especially a really healthful food like produce. So I think giving it a clean is just another way to ensure that you're getting any like grime, dirt, bacteria off of the exterior and really just kind of keeping yourself as safe as possible in that respect.
And if you're on chemo or on medication
Mhm.
or have COVID or whatever, like or have immune compromised situation, you do need to wash your stuff, or you do
Yeah.
not need to be eating raw. But you know what? It's so funny because I don't always wash the grapes, but to me, the dirtiest vegetable is a mushroom. Like you can actually see the dirt on the mushrooms. So
Yeah.
when I clean the mushrooms, I wonder, gosh, why isn't the dirt on the grapes or on the, is it because how mushrooms are grown? But there's always dirt on mushrooms. I will wash mushrooms. That's like the one thing that I'm really religious about washing well,
Yeah.
but because you can see the dirt.
Yeah, they are. It's definitely the way they're like grown and harvested. I
Yeah.
think they just kind of like scoop it all up and they're like, if there's a
Yeah.
little dirt, there's a little dirt.
So you
Right.
try to say dirt don't hurt. Okay.
But I remember my grandmother cleaning greens way more than I have to. I feel like I have to clean greens. Like I remember when I was first started cooking greens, maybe whatever, how many years ago, I'm not even gonna say. There was sand in the greens. I think they do a better job now in the grocery store, but you would find, like I would have sand in my sink at the bottom of the sink after I finished cleaning the greens. I don't see that as much now, but
Yeah. And I feel like it depends, right? Like I feel like I notice that a lot with herbs sometimes, like cilantro and parsley. They have a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
like
yeah,
the sand or the grit on it. So
yeah,
that's why I think it's a good general just rule of thumb, right? Like give everything a wash, even if it's just a good rinse or a good soak,
right, right.
you're taking it another step further.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, so now I know, don't eat out of the bag, wait till you get home, and then good rinse.
It'll be that much better when you get home.
Yeah, that's true, but but the traffic will mess you up. You'll be driving
That's
home,
true. That's so true.
just fighting it. I was like, can I just have one? And just blow the dust off. Is like
Yeah.
the 5-second rule doesn't work here. So
no,
So I had another question. So well, let me just
Yeah.
be clear. So I'm not saying for people to deviate between organic and and foods that are not organically grown. But the focal point here is make sure we keep our foods clean, right? And
yeah,
Correct.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
and then
yeah,
he talked about some food. I had a quick question that came up about calcium in the foods. And so
Yeah.
mm.
there I have
Calcium's another big one, right?
about tofu
Mm-hmm.
having calcium, but tofu in relationship, have you heard anything about it having impact on worsening cancer or anything like that, or because it may have estrogens or anything like that in there, or some of the
Yeah.
or soy, the relationship between tofu and
Soy definitely has a rap with breast
Yeah.
cancer.
clarify
Yeah.
what's going on
I'm
here.
sure you can imagine with the breast cancer space. I get this question almost every day. So I feel like an expert at answering the soy question. Soy does have what's called phytoestrogens. Phyto just means plant. It's kind of that initial, beginner word to the phrase. Phytoestrogens act similarly to human estrogen, but they're not as significantly impacting our estrogen levels in a sense that they're causing or impacting cancer. Actually, most research that we see now shows that in areas where they are consuming more whole forms of soy, that's an important delineation. So, like tofu, tempeh, miso, soy milk are going to actually have lower incidence of hormonal related cancers such as breast cancer. So usually what I tell people is that whether you have been diagnosed or maybe you have risk, right? You're a previvor, you have risk for breast cancer. Soy is a completely safe food to consume in these whole forms. There are other phytoestrogens in things like flax seeds as well. Same concept where they're not mimicking human estrogen in that negative impact way. But what I always like to add as the caveat is, let's say, your doctor said not to eat soy because of the estrogen. So there was a while ago, there was a research study done on mice, and it was done with soy additives, and they gave them like an exorbitant high amount of soy additives, and they did see incidents of increased risk of cancer, but that was the
Really,
additives, and
really.
also it was way more than anybody would eat in a day, and it was mice, so different than humans. So what I tell people, because I think some people still have that school of thought of like stay away from soy, if your doctor said stay away from soy and the thought of adding in tofu into your day is like kind of nerve wracking, don't do it, right? It's not worth the stress that it brings on. But if you're comfortable and open to it, know that it's a completely safe way to get a lot of protein. And a cup of tofu, if you had that with your dinner, is going to have half of the daily recommendation. It has about 500 milligrams of calcium. So really good source of calcium there as well.
So
Okay.
so tofu is good
Mhm.
for our bone health.
Yeah.
Because of the calcium,
Yep.
right?
Calcium.
Yeah,
So this is not tofu
yeah,
is
yeah,
naturally
yeah.
has calcium in it, or does it have to be fortified? Does
So
it,
typically
Right.
most tofu is fortified with calcium. So anything that you're going to get in the store, you'll see that fortified, just like our milk and our plant milks, for example. I think that's a big misconception is that you have to have dairy to get calcium, but most plant milks, almond milk, oat milk, soy milk, they're typically fortified with calcium, sometimes even more calcium than dairy
Right,
milk actually
right.
has.
That's interesting. So,
Wow.
'cause I drink a lot of, matter of fact, I drink all almond milk and
Yeah.
coating and coconut. And so, and I was concerned about that.
Yeah.
I didn't really, I have to look closer to see if it's fortified with calcium.
Yeah, calcium is one of the key nutrients. So there are 4 nutrients that will be on every nutrition facts label, calcium being one of them. So it would just say it on the back how much calcium is in there. I'm pretty sure it's fairly standard for all brands to incorporate some sort of fortification with that milk because if you think about it, they're
Right.
not giving that edge if they don't have the calcium, right? You want to have the calcium because that's what
Right.
people are looking for and needing. So you should see some calcium in your almond milk.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
All
Okay.
right. So Aubrey,
Yeah.
Sunday dinner is a big thing in Black
Mhm.
households. Not as much as it used to be. I mean, my whole family would go to my grandma's house for Sunday dinner. My mother had one brother, so I had 3 cousins, and we would all go home with a box with a bag of food, right?
Yeah.
That would really last till like Tuesday or Wednesday. So my grandma would be cooking all day Saturday, all
I
day
had
Sunday
constant
from
TV
church.
dinner, so okay.
Huh?
I had
Huh?
constant TV dinner, so go ahead. I'm just
And
sorry.
well, no, but that's what I would get the rest of the week. I would get TV dinners the rest because my mother didn't cook because my grandmother never taught her how to cook. Actually, when I got married, my grandmother moved in with me and stayed for 3 months and taught me how to cook,
Oh my
taught
God.
me how to grocery shop, taught me how to measure things, how to sort of manage a food budget, everything. Because she never did it for my mother. My mother never really cooked. But because I would be eating those Swanson TV dinners.
With with the little brownie, a
Yeah,
little
with a little brownie that was hard
Yeah.
brown.
didn't
Or
have a
the
microwave.
applesauce. The apple.
And then it's hot. Yeah.
So gross. But anyway, so give us a good dinner to cook on Sunday. Give us a good, like, what would you, if it was Sunday and you could cook anything for a family, and what would
Last
that
for the
look
whole
like?
week.
And that would last for a couple days of leftovers. Like, sometimes I like bake a chicken or something that will give me a couple of meals. Like Haley's actually really good at that. She'll like bake a chicken, have the chicken leftovers, make chicken pie, make chicken soup with the car, like she can make a chicken last for a few days, but and I used to cook all the time. I don't anymore. Like, so give us a good dinner to cook. It's just a good healthy dinner, like a basic thing that anybody could do
Yeah.
today.
That's
So
a great question.
I want the audience to lean in on this too, because I think everybody could benefit from being able to prepare a good, healthy dinner on Sunday. And even if you cook the rest of the week, you can take some of that with you for lunch.
Right, for
Yeah.
lunch, right?
Yeah. I feel like, especially if you're cooking for a crowd, like you're having a lot of people over, to have that family meal, even if it's just you, your partner. I love the concept of having kind of like main focal pieces to your meal. So you have a big dish of your protein, let's say. So maybe you're making a whole chicken, or maybe you're making some salmon fillets, right?
Yeah.
Cook up a bunch. Then you have your grain. So I would pick a whole grain, something like brown rice. Quinoa is a really great option that I feel
What
like
is quinoa? I don't even know what that word is, but like I can't chew that stuff. It like gets stuck in my teeth, and I'm like, I just want to brush my teeth after I eat that stuff. It has no
Yeah.
taste to me.
Okay,
Like,
so
what
not
is it?
quinoa in
But what
Ricky's
is it?
household.
What is it?
So it's one of our whole grains. It's really small. It's almost like a seed size,
Mhm.
if you could equate it. If you like are familiar with chia seeds, which are also very small. It's a
Yeah.
small circular whole grain. Um, it's a really great source of fiber and protein. So a lot of times I will recommend it, but it's not always everybody's favorite because compared to something like rice, it is pretty different. So
Well,
if
could
you
you
guys
mix them?
are
Could you mix quinoa and rice and brown rice?
Yeah, you definitely could. Or you could mix brown rice and white rice, right? You could do wild rice, also a
Okay.
whole grain. Sometimes I'll recommend farro, which is another whole grain that's a lot more similar to rice. So it's a lot bigger of a piece.
Yeah,
It's got like
farro's
a
not as bad, but
nuttier texture, nuttier flavor. So I would say cook a large batch of a grain because that's something you can pull from, right? For the week, you could make a salad, toss a little bit of your brown rice on top, or later in the week, if you make a different protein for dinner, you could have some of your brown rice that you saved with it. And then I would cook a big batch of vegetables. I would say roast a sheet pan of vegetables. So chop up your favorites, be it Brussels sprouts, carrots, onions, peppers, could be a mix of a bunch of different things, could be one different vegetable. Toss it on a sheet pan with some olive oil, some garlic, and then your favorite seasonings. Sometimes you can even use like the marinade that you use for your protein, right? Just save a little on the side, toss it with your veggies, pop it and roast it in the oven. It's a very set and forget kind of thing. And then you have a delicious meal, right? You have your beautiful piece of chicken or salmon, you've got a nice portion of your grain, and then you have some really well seasoned vegetables on the side. So a lot
No
of times
butter, no butter.
you could put a little butter. You can put a little butter on it, especially if you think you're making these
She said
veggies.
a little butter. She didn't say butter. She said a little butter. That's how I
Just
get this straight, folks. You heard her say it. A little. I know half a
I
spoon.
like to put it into perspective, right? You know, if you're, let's say you put some butter on your veggies that you're cooking, right? If you're going to have these veggies all week, sure, put 2, 3, 4 tablespoons butter. When you spread it out for the whole week, maybe you're having like a half of a tablespoon per portion. It puts it into perspective.
Okay.
So question. So quinoa, we know quinoa has a little calcium in it.
Mhm.
Okay. And then am I pronouncing it right? Is it mullet or millet or
Millet, yeah.
what's the difference between the two? What grain should we really be eating? I mean, you said quinoa, you said is a good one for us. Should we
Yeah.
eat white rice or should we be eating quinoa or millet?
I would say both serve a purpose, right? So white rice, I mean, I eat white rice. Like I'm not here to say I don't eat white rice. I do. I love white rice. I think, what are you pairing it with, right? Are you getting in lots of like protein and fiber and veggies with it? Then sure, enjoy your white rice. However, I think if you're trying to make an upgrade, a grain is a good place that you can do that, right? To swap to like a brown rice or a different type of whole grain. I feel like brown rice is a good soft segue to some other whole grains. It's like a next step. But especially when I think about like cultural foods, right? Like I'm not here to tell anybody if your dish traditionally has white rice that you should now use quinoa. I do think that some of the whole grains do have a little bit more of that nutrient density. I feel like a perfect full circle moment. They have a little bit more of that nutrient density to it than something like a white rice.
But gumbo you can only eat with white rice. I don't know.
Exactly. See, there's times that it's just it
true.
makes
That's
so
true.
much more sense to stick with that white rice, right?
What about potatoes?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
funny that you mentioned that because I think they get such a horrible reputation, but they're a really good source of, especially if you eat the skin, fiber, but also minerals like potassium, which we need for blood pressure regulation, but also for our heart health. So when we think about eating all the different colors of vegetables, I always like to include white as one of the colors. So potatoes are definitely something that we can enjoy and incorporate. I usually, when I'm talking to people about balance, right? A lot of times I'll say to picture a plate, let's say you have your dinner plate, maybe half of it is like your veggies, and then a quarter protein, a quarter starch. I like to think of a potato as that starch instead of the veggie side of the plate, right? So have your potato, but still have some carrots and some Brussels sprouts with it, right? Some additional veg.
So
So
when I think potato though, I think butter.
I do too.
And
I
maybe a little
love.
salt, little salt, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
let me go back a little. So I just drew my plate.
Uh-huh.
So I got half of my plates of vegetables,
Uh-huh.
and that's green.
Could be green, could be a different color.
Okay, a vegetable could be carrots. Okay, they can be orange.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then how much meat?
A quarter of your plate as your meat or your protein.
I got
and then
you.
the other quarter as your starch. It's
As
not to say every meal is going to look this way, but sometimes when you're trying to visualize it, it's like a helpful rule of thumb to know where to add. I think a lot of times we just need to maybe add a little bit more to that veggie portion.
So can I ask you a question? Can I put my sweet potato on the
I
veggies?
know, I was gonna bring up a sweet potato too. Can I put my sweet potato
On
in
the veggie side?
is that on the
Oh, I
veggie
see. Is
side?
that the white potato side?
I feel like you can
Okay.
classify the sweet potato on whatever side you want, right? But I would put the sweet potato probably with that starch too.
Oh, but see, sweet potatoes, that's a valuable dish for people who have African ancestry.
I know, and that's why
With
every plate's
cinnamon,
not going to
sugar,
look like
and
this.
butter.
Yeah,
But
see,
you know what though? My son-in-law
you don't
makes the
need no
best.
sugar. If you go to sweet potato, you don't need some sugar.
I know, a little
Okay.
bit.
So,
But
but
my no, my son-in-law makes this great veggie thing, but he does broccoli, cauliflower, sweet potatoes, onions,
Oof.
peppers, mushrooms, and like sometimes a zucchini, and he just
Yeah.
chops all up, little elbow. He does put a little butter and garlic and like roast it, and it's really a good thing.
oh, I thought he was patting that stuff together, made a little patty out of that
No, no,
bad.
no. He like roasts it in pieces, and it's really a great thing.
Oh.
So my granddaughters like love veggies because of that, and that's how they
Awesome.
can
Well, the
expect.
sweet potato make anything taste good.
Yeah, so I know because I think the sweet potatoes give it a
Yeah, the
different
sweetness
sweetness when you
edge.
put together with a bite with the broccoli. It's a good thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
My grandmother would only make liver we had sweet potato and liver.
ooh,
Yeah, liver and then sweet potato casserole. It's like,
Right,
Dr.
you're like, ooh, I don't know.
Well,
Mm,
it's not as
liver.
bad as chitlins, but we won't go in that direction
I
on this.
know we will not go in there today, even though oh my
We'll
gosh.
go there because I'm trying to figure out, is there calcium? Is there some what's in the chitlin? But a lot of people like it.
Yeah, when my mother cooked chitlins, I would go to my white friends' houses.
That was the
No,
day I just left
no.
over somebody else's house.
On New Year's Day, yeah, I'm going to my
I
white
tell
friend's
you,
house.
if you grew up in our age group,
Yeah,
I would pack my Samsonite, little kitty Samsonite,
and go.
to go. I can't stay
I
in the
gotta
house.
go. I can't stay in the house. I couldn't make it.
So my cousins, they didn't even have air conditioning. I said, I don't care. I said, look,
Ooh.
I'm going over this
Me.
heat. This is Texas heat, not this New England heat. This is like Texas 117 heat.
Yeah.
Cooking
Mm.
chitlins. I'm like, see you. Packing my little bag, put my little Chuck Taylors in there with my and get a Hostess cupcake and walk over across the street.
Walk across the street to the white people.
So
But
I
Aubrey
like
gave us a great meal. Aubrey gave us a great Sunday dinner. I'm gonna go shopping right now. I'm gonna get some salmon. I'm gonna get some veggies, and
some sardines.
no sardines. Can't do it.
Yeah, toss those sardines in there.
No,
But
I'm
you
not
have
gonna
shrimp. What about some shrimp? I mean, I'm sorry. What's about some shrimp?
You could do some shrimp too. You could do shrimp.
It's Friday. I slipped out. It slipped. The shrimp slipped out. I said, okay.
You
So
know
we
what?
got-
You know what the fish I get questions about all the time is tilapia. My fish market says don't buy tilapia. It's not good for you. It's like bad stuff. And he actually one time cut open a tilapia, like a whole fish for me, and showed me what the inside looked like. It was gross.
So is that tilapia grown in farm raised fish?
I don't know where it was grown,
I don't
but
know where's tilapia from? Is it because it just I just knew catfish and
Yeah.
salmon and some trout. And
I'm sure
think
there
I
are
heard
wild
tilapia.
tilapia, right? But I
Yeah.
think most of the tilapia we have is like a farm raised. And to my understanding, they're more of like a bottom feeder type
bottom
fish.
feeder fish. Yeah, it was nasty.
Yeah.
Inside
So I
but-
think
but
that's
you
where a
had
lot of the
catfish.
that hesitation comes from, right? Because like you said, you saw the inside probably didn't look too good.
Well, you want some bottom feeders. You got lobsters, a bottom feeder.
I know
shrimp.
crabs, shrimp, all those guys.
I really don't know where sardines are in this whole equation. All I just know they're in a can and it's oily. So
They're in
but-
a can in the ocean too, you know?
That's right, right?
That's Tony. It's
Right.
not Tony Tuna. What's that? What's Charlie Tuna or whatever the guy's in the.
Yeah, Charlie the tuna. Charlie
Charlie
the
the tuna.
tuna.
I said Tony's the tiger, but Charlie's the tuna. I said I just
Mm.
have to get it. It's Friday. So tofu, soy milk, green leafy vegetables, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, right? Broccoli. Brussels sprouts, and what else?
Let's talk about one more thing that Black people tend to
Yeah.
eat. Fried foods, fried chicken, fried everything, fried fish. Like if you were gonna like
Uh-oh. Come
fry
on.
fish versus broil it or whatever, like frying, like how bad is frying chicken and frying?
And then can I add
Yeah.
frying it in the different types of oil? Because if you can
Yeah,
fry it in olive oil or coconut oil or
does it
macadamia,
make a difference?
does it make a difference?
Or avocado oil, does it make a difference? So talk about frying.
Yeah, yeah. So frying, like deep fat frying. So you've got like a layer, like a thick layer of oil, right? You're dropping something in or a fryer to
Like
deep fat
Crisco,
fry.
right? Like
That's gonna be, yeah, that's gonna be, I would say if you had to rank things, right? That's gonna be a little bit more on that less healthful side.
you
So
can say
because
it,
of
Aubrey, don't do it.
Coconut. I mean, come on. You got coconut oil. I can find coconut oil.
Well, I feel like there's tiers, right? So it's like a pan in the middle where we can kind of meet in the middle is like a shallow pan fry, right? So with like an oil or something of that, maybe a little bit of butter, right? Something, a shallow pan fry instead of
That
a
butter
deep
in there
fat
too.
fry where it's really soaking in all of that grease and oil. When you're doing a shallow fry, it's a little bit more of just like a hard sear that still gives the crispiness and the crunch of the fry without soaking in all of that oil that's not so great for our heart health. And then we have the opposite end of the spectrum, which is like baking and broiling, which is very different, of course. But I feel like air fryers are a great alternative, not a perfect one-to-one alternative, but they're a good alternative that's helpful
Yeah,
for
so what's
some.
good about air fryers or what's not good? Because everyone's like, oh, I have an air fryer. I air fry, so it's okay. Is it
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, so instead of frying it and crisping it in oil, it's a dry heat cooking method that kind of it's comparable to cooking it in your oven, but the way that the air is filtered in, it helps to really get around the whole piece of fish or piece of meat that you're trying to air fry. So instead of putting grease all over it and getting that suck in, it's just going to fry with heat and air instead. So it's a really helpful alternative when you
It
air
is.
fry versus like
So,
fat fry.
so is it better than my George Foreman?
That's more of like a grilling, right? Like, you're putting it in the George Foreman and you're like putting it down. If I'm thinking about the George Foreman I had growing up, right? It's like the little thing that opens
Yeah.
and closes. That's more of like a grill.
I just called you old. Did you see that? She just called you old.
She was talking about food, so that went over my head. I was just like,
Keep going, Aubrey.
I was just like, she said, like that grilled chicken was looking good. I was like, back in college, you just put that George Foreman on there. And it's like, I'll be right back. Flip it. Got some chicken. Get some government cheese, and we good.
Just pop that on there. I feel like sometimes the grilling is a little bit better because a lot of times we don't bread it first, right? Like you're usually just using like the regular chicken, whereas you'd air fry it, you would bread it first because you still want to get that crispy batter on the outside. So I would say it's not really either here nor there, but maybe the grilling's a little bit better in the George Foreman grill versus the air fry. But I'm a huge fan of both. I think both are good.
All right, so I use my grill all winter long. Like I'm
Yeah.
gonna go knock the snow off of it today, probably and grill something. So tell me about the black stuff on the grill. Like, should you like burn the hot dog? Should you burn the like make it a what's that? What about? Tell me about the black part of the grill stuff.
Yeah, I see Keith shaking his head.
I just might as well just eat raw vegetables.
Again, I don't want to scare anybody. I think with the grilling, a little bit here nor there, a little bit here and there as far as like the black and the char is certainly acceptable. I like to call a lot of these things like pebbles under your tire. So, and maybe you guys have heard me say this before because I say it a lot, but it's a pebble under your tire. If you're driving on the highway and you drive over a pebble, probably not going to notice it. It's not going to throw your car off the road. Having something grilled with some like extra char on it, it's kind of like a pebble under your tire, right? It's not going to throw your health trajectory off just by, enjoying a glass of wine or enjoying a hamburger at a barbecue, right? These things. I would say traditionally, my recommendation for grilling is trying to just get away from like a really hard, significant black sear. As just the black on the exterior can be a concern, especially thinking in the oncology space. We don't want to have too much of that hard sear on it. However, grilling is a really great like low fat cooking method, and it adds a beautiful kind of caramelization and a beautiful flavor. So it adds almost that like nice like smokiness to it. So I would say grilling perfectly fine. I would just try to like stick away from like really blackening everything and just try to give it like a nice little gentle sear on the
Okay,
grill.
okay, all right. All right, last thing for me is it really bad to eat pork?
No, I feel like with pork, it's a lot easier to get a leaner cut of pork than beef, right? Or getting a cut where you can kind of like move away from some of the like fat on it, like a tenderloin, for example. Like a lot of times you can kind of like cut some of that off. Pork, typically, I categorize with red meats as things we want to try to limit from a protein standpoint. And that's solely because, mostly because of the saturated fat content we do see with a lot of red meats. But like I said, pork is a lot of times one where you can get maybe like a leaner cut of it. Um, I would say with like ground meat, sometimes it's a little hard with the pork. I feel like pork is sold in one type of ground meat, whereas
Right.
beef, you can get like a 99 1, right? So you're getting something that's a lot more lean in that respect. So I wouldn't say pork is like that bad. I just think that there are maybe better alternatives, but pork is also something that still can be easily integrated into like a healthy diet as well.
How about bacon?
Bacon, that's where I feel like that's a little bit a more questionable form of pork.
Look at his face.
That's where that extra fat, if you cut the fat off of bacon, what's left, right? What's there? So typically with
This
processed meats,
it's a, look at
bacon,
oh, so
you know.
now we're going to now she goes to processed meats.
No,
Okay.
no.
Oh, no,
I
that's
would
good.
say bacon is a pebble, right? We're gonna enjoy it situationally. You go out to Sunday, brunch with the family, enjoy your bacon. Maybe not every day, right?
Okay, all right, all right, all
So
right.
just to recap,
Yeah, where are we?
we got some calcium sources that you named that were excellent. Okay, so we got some tofu, we have soy, okay, green leafy vegetables, we broccoli and Brussels sprouts, and then we didn't talk that much about mustard greens,
Mm-hmm.
but kale, we had some.
Collard
Yeah.
greens,
Okay,
right?
Chinese cabbage, bok choy.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the beans and legumes because you
Yep.
Yep, and the nuts and nuts.
talked about
Yeah.
them. Whew.
We
So,
talked about a lot.
sardine. We got the sardines.
Sardines.
Sardines with bones or salmons with bones. Okay. We got shrimp, and we fortified juices. We didn't really get into juices, but you did mention nuts and almonds and that. And the last
Eggs, the eggs is a source
egg,
of vitamin D.
yeah,
Yeah.
because look at that.
Yeah,
Where does eggs fall? Is it a dairy product or is it just a, how would you classify eggs? Poultry is, what would you classify egg?
Yeah, I feel like they always are with dairy at the grocery store, but I just like classify them as a protein source. So
okay.
I would classify them almost with like meats, where that's where I typically put them.
So we all learned that it's the yolk that's
Yeah,
good.
that gives you the vitamin D. Wow, right?
Yeah,
So look at that.
that's the takeaway today
Yeah,
is
so
those
these
egg
people that buy,
yolks.
yeah,
There.
yeah,
Eat
I
your egg.
didn't,
It's
yeah,
farm red, farm,
yeah, all that farm raised, whatever,
and
from
wash your fruit.
free
Wash
range.
your fruit.
Yeah, and wash your produce.
Wash your
Okay,
produce and free range chicken. None of this
it's not really a thing.
free
Yeah,
range.
I was gonna say, get your chicken, right? Get whatever chicken suits you.
Yeah, yeah.
Listen,
I know
okay.
once I was in Ohio and I went
So I'm
to
gonna
buy
go get something.
chicken.
I'm going down the street to Popeyes, and
We're
but
not going to Popeyes.
we can't get any greasy food, so I can't come eat chicken.
No, once I was in Ohio and I went to the store and the chicken breasts were like bigger than my body.
What I'm saying now, now you cannot. Now, that's anytime you have a
Turkey.
chicken breast that looked like a short person's leg. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
like it was a shoe, like a turkey leg.
yeah, like
Yeah.
what kind of chickens are these? Oh my God, they're
Right.
like horses.
It wasn't Thanksgiving. It was labeled chicken.
Right,
It wasn't
right,
labeled turkey.
right. It was a chicken and it was
You
like
know those big clumps
massive
you cook
chicken
them.
breast.
I thought that was only for sausages or like hot
Yeah.
dogs. These jokers are like big chicken.
Somebody did something to those chickens.
Yeah, those poor chickens. They
Do they blow air in them? So why do they? How do
I
they
don't know
get
what they were
big?
so big. I was afraid to eat them. They didn't look like chickens. But
yeah.
oh my God, you are such a blessing.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
She's
So
on
I want you to
Friday.
come
On
back and cook,
Friday. She
huh?
on a Friday. So we're gonna videotape you cooking. What's your specialty? What do you like to cook?
Ooh, that's a good question. I love to cook anything, really, quite frankly. I don't know that I have a specialty. I do like mac and cheese. I know we were talking about mac and cheese. I
I
do
know.
make a good one.
See,
Me
now let me
too.
ask you a question. Is it 3 cheeses or is it 1 cheese?
I use two cheeses. I meet in the middle. Two cheeses.
It's one of the cheeses a Gouda, a smoked Gouda.
Oh no, but that's something to try for
Now
sure.
now go to your 3 cheeses. Now I just gave you your third
I
cheese.
just now I
Three
have a third.
cheese.
Third
Now I
I
cheese.
have
know.
a third.
I do well 3 cheese, but I do Parmesan. Parmesan is
Oh,
one of my cheeses.
Talk about smoked Gouda. So I'll take a Parmesan smoked Gouda, and then
And a
I don't
cheddar. And a cheddar.
cheddar and a cheddar.
mhm.
But you
Or
know what the key is? I don't use the little noodles. I use like Parpadel or bow ties.
Yeah,
you
something bigger.
Something bigger like bow ties. It really like wraps around the cheese better. It's really good.
Yeah.
know, some po folks, I get the elbow.
I don't do elbows.
Just the traditional. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not an I don't like the elbows. I
I don't
always
like
get something
elbows. I do
different
bow
too.
ties. Yeah. Pappardelle or bow ties.
Okay, I'm gonna try bow tie. I'll try some bow tie,
Try
but
some bow ties.
looking,
Try
I'm
some
gonna
bow
do
ties.
Parmesan,
Yeah, Parmesan and Gouda. That sounds good.
and then you don't throw anything else like some secret sauce and make it delicious. Do
I
you?
make a roux.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you make your oh, you
Make a
make a
roux
Yeah.
with butter and heavy cream.
see. I see. I okay.
It all boils down to the
You see,
butter. It
it's
does.
I
it was the
know.
butter. It was the
My
butter.
mac and cheese is probably bigger than a pedal.
I said it was the butter and then the
Pebble,
heavy
a
cream.
pebble.
See, I knew it was something that made it juicy good.
You know, my mac and cheese is probably worse than a pebble under your
Talked
tire.
about my elbow macaroni, and I might as well have Chef Boyardee in a can.
No. All right,
Oh my
Aubrey,
gosh.
think about what you're gonna cook. Come back and visit us soon. Let's
I
cook.
will.
Yeah, we'll video and you'll be cooking, and it's like
Yeah.
take
And we'll
some
all walk away with dinner.
Yeah,
down.
there we go.
Sunday
That's
dinner.
next time I will have a dish for us to prepare.
All right, all right.
And then
All
it will be thin or thick pork chops.
Oh. Thin pork chops? Thick I don't know. Either or.
Okay, well our audience wants to know.
All right. We'll have to keep it a secret.
We'll
till
have
you-
to see. I'll keep you on your toes.
Yeah. Keep you on your toes.
So Ricky,
All right. Thanks for being here with us. You're
Yeah.
awesome. Love you, Dr. Keith.
Thanks,
love you
guys.
guys. Everybody have a nice Friday or
It's Sunday. It's gonna be Sunday.
Sunday. I'm sorry. Have a nice Sunday. Have a nice new week. I want everyone to understand that.
And a new year. Happy New Year. We'll see you
Yeah.
next month. Love
Peace.
your bones.
Love your
Bye,
bones.
everyone.
Love your bones.
Bye.
Bye.